Hi, everybody. Welcome to Therapist Thursday. I'm so excited today. Today, we're talking to Lisa Manca, and we're going to talk about dance and movement therapy. Yeah, why don't you kick us off by telling us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Okay. My name is Lisa Manca, like Megan just said, and I'm a dance therapist and licensed professional clinical counselor here in San Francisco. And I do dance therapy sessions, I do dance therapy workshops, and I also do a lot with attachment and trauma for people that are trying to recover.
Amazing. So cool. And like, how did you even get into dance movement therapy? Like, what was your journey to that?
Oh my gosh, this is kind of one of those ridiculous stories of like you're 22 and you think you know everything. So I in undergrad I really loved dance and I really loved psychology and I was like there's art therapy in the world, there's music therapy in the world, there must be dance therapy. So I typed it into Google and I found the American Dance Therapy Association and I found like a bunch of grad school programs to get an MA, a master's in dance therapy. And I, without really knowing what it was, still like I applied and I got into a couple spots and I still didn't really know what it was. And I just was like, I think this is for me. And I got accepted to a couple of schools and I moved across the country and got my master's in dance therapy. So
It was so fun. Like, I have a very similar story into trauma therapy. Yeah, it was one of the, my cousin was studying music therapy in undergrad, and I was like, music therapy? Certainly there's theater therapy. I had to Yahoo it because we didn't have Google yet.
okay. That makes
Amazing.
sense. Um,
Um,
that's so funny though that knowing like there's a knowing there's never been a point where I'm like this isn't the career for me. And so when people talk about I don't know what to do in a career, it's like I didn't have that path. Like somehow I knew this was it. And I've obviously different variations, different iterations of myself as a therapist, but always dance therapy, which is kind of fascinating.
that's amazing. Do you ever find that, at any point in your maybe towards the earlier part of your career that there was, a conflict between the dancing for your own self and your own creative expression, and then the dancing as a tool for therapeutic means, or where the balance of that was off in some way?
Very much so, actually, because when we dance for ourselves, there's this kind of healing quality, right? There's a focus on the self. Dance therapy is, and all therapy, right, is consistently focused on the other, right? You can't go into therapy and be like, let me tell you all about me. Let me do this movement because it feels good to me. And part of dance therapy is mirroring. I don't know if you guys do mirroring in drama.
Hmm,
Drama therapy?
mhm.
Okay, so a lot of that, and that's not mimicry, we wanna distinguish, right? So it's taking the qualities of a movement that we see in a person and replicating them as a way to develop empathy. So imagine, as a young dance therapy intern, I go to inpatient psych hospitals, and all I'm mirroring is a lot of movement that is pretty restricted and unhealthy for me. And that might be their reality. But as I come home, like it just felt like I was consistently moving in ways that felt really like taking on movement that didn't feel good to me. So I found that if I am not doing, and some dance therapists don't do their own dance classes, but I found for me, if I don't have my own movement practice of some kind of dance or yoga or some kind of healthy movement for me, it can be really challenging. Does that make sense?
100%. I kinda, figured that out a little bit too not too late, but, later than I would have liked. I think I was, so focused on using my creativity for others, helping other people tell their stories, that I sort of let my own artist, um, dwindle a little bit, and it's in coming back to that, that I feel like a more integrated person and a better therapist and a better artist. But it was a journey to kinda come back to that versus having kept it going, consistently.
Right, and it is an art form, right? So whatever your art is, or it's good to keep that creativity flowing. I think the additional aspect of the bodily empathy is feeling in your body what someone else is feeling. And that can be overpowering if it's someone that's pretty sick, right? And you're doing it 8 hours a day for however many days a week. I worked in the men's prison and inpatient psych in a men's prison. And that was a lot of, um, there just felt like a lot of armoring. Like the men always were doing exercises that felt like weightlifting or things that built up armor. And you felt like you had to be guarded. And I felt like I was taking on some of those out of necessity and also out of the fact that I was constantly mirroring what these men were doing in their own bodies.
Whew, yeah, I can relate. I also got my start in inpatient psych and,
Mhm.
in a men's Bellevue men's shelter in New York City, so it was, men with mental illness and substance abuse and lots of trauma history, housing insecurity. So yeah, 100% can relate. And I think I don't know that I always had tools for understanding the physical empathy. I ended up doing my thesis on compassion fatigue and vicarious trauma because I was, as an intern, working with kids who are very traumatized, and I was doing mirroring without really thinking about it. I was just like, just naturally doing it, and then I was just taking on this really dark material. I was having imagery come up from just the physical mirroring of people, and it was really, really intense. And I wanted to understand that better. And then I was like, oh, that's a superpower, but also I have to learn how to wield it because it can be really a lot to take on. So very much can understand.
Yeah, I found that, and this is as a more quote mature therapist or a more experienced therapist, um, I found that I have to have my own meditation, my own where am I in my body today? Because I've kind of we finally tune our instruments, and for a dance therapist, it's like the body, right? And people would come in, and I'd be like, I am angry, but I wasn't angry 2 minutes ago, right? And that
Mhm.
was just this wave of whatever this person was having, and I could feel it in my body. And like a couple minutes later, the client would talk about feeling frustrated. And I was like, okay, that wasn't mine. But
Mhm.
if I didn't know where I was at, I could assume I was angry or frustrated and not have the separation to know what's mine and what's the client's.
Yes. I do know, and, I'm
Yeah.
working with, younger therapists now in the, like, supervisory capacity, and part of me is like, "This is a thing you're gonna develop, like, just trust me." Um, but anyway, I would love to hear I'm sure our audience would love to hear a little bit more about, like, what does dance therapy look like? What might it look like in a session? And, certainly you can't speak for all dance movement therapists, but for how it works for you, what you like.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of dance therapy, I think the biggest thing that why we need the dance piece of it, which I think people need to understand, is being able to take on the movement qualities of
Mm.
our clients and being able to observe movement. So observing and replicating movement, and then also doing movement intervention. So these three things are important: observation, replication, and then doing interventions. So for me in my practice, I like to get some background about what people want to do. And then there's usually a warm up and a kind of middle of the like a meat of the session, and then some kind of closure. So it's a movement warm up. Before the movement warm up, I usually talk to people about, what's going on? What are you looking for? What's happening in your week? And that can give me a little bit of guidance as to where the session should go movement wise. And then in the movement warm up, I'm looking at their body and seeing what's held, how they're moving, is there a flow to it, like these different movement aspects. And those two things kind of inform the session. So if somebody comes in and they're like, I'm really working on boundaries in with this person, we can figure out how to use that in movement. And then sometimes it's not even that structured. Sometimes it's just like putting on music, moving. If it's someone that really has trouble getting in touch with their body, I'm not going to structure a ton, because maybe I will structure enough so that they feel comfortable, but I don't want to interrupt if they're actually moving and feeling okay. Then, the questions that come up are often like, are there any memories, images, sensations that you're noticing as you're moving these body parts? Any feelings, right? So, and sometimes it'll be like, oh, it's odd. I'm moving my shoulder and I'm remembering this time that blah, blah, blah happens, right? I was out with my father and we did this. And you can take that and just kind of process some of that. So, a lot of movement is getting into the psychological work. And then I like to do a little bit of a closure in terms of, okay, is there anything else you need to express in your body? Take a moment, find stillness, that kind of thing. And in that closure, we can also verbally process a bit more what we did in movement, right? And try to make some meaning of it. And even though I'm observing and I have ideas about things, it's very important to check in with the client that what I'm observing and the meaning that I'm making are in line with what they're actually feeling.
It's amazing. Yeah, it's lots of overlaps with like some modalities of drama therapy. So I love hearing that. Is there like a particular client who really seems to flourish in dance? I mean, I think it's probably great for anyone, but like, is there, if you want to talk about like what kinds of issues people bring to you or what kinds of things they're working on or, what kind of outcomes they can expect. Yeah, if you can just kind of talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, obviously it's great for a wide range of people, right? But I think people that have trouble connecting to their bodies, slowing down, being in movement, those kind of things, people that are really anxious, this can be a great modality. People that have any kind of psychological trauma and need a way to process it, but find that talking keeps just exacerbating it and making it not necessarily worse, but it feels like you're rehashing, and it's not going anywhere. Um, Dance therapy can be great to process trauma in that kind of way, because it's just like, well, what are you moving? Can we find a different way to move? And how you move is basically who you are, right? So if we change something about how you move, we're changing a bit about who you are. So it's a really great modality for that. But it's basically used all over, right? So depression, anxiety, people with schizophrenia. But I work with a lot of people that kind of run into a wall and maybe they're done with talk therapy, or maybe, something about them feels drawn to dance therapy. Maybe they were a dancer. Maybe they've noticed they just aren't comfortable in their body and they're willing to go to that place of, okay, I'm going to trust this process. It's going to be a little bit different and I'm going to see what comes up for me.
That's awesome. I know one thing I get from people when I say that I'm a drama therapist, there's this like um, anxiety of like old judgment around their ability to like be on stage or any kind of public speaking or any of that. There sometimes is this resistance that's wrapped up in the art form, and I'm wondering, if you encounter that or what you would want people to know if that's their fear that's keeping them from something that they're maybe drawn to.
Right. So we hear the word dance and it feels like a very, at least in a lot of our Western, maybe more waspy, culture, we hear the word dance and it's a specialized thing that only a certain amount of people do. And they do it on a stage and at a very high level. And that is kind of the antithesis of dance therapy. And we have to look at other cultures too. Like if you grew up dancing salsa or bachata or, some other cultural dance, there might be more familiarity with movement. But I think in many pockets of the US, it's just dance is something that's scary. Something sometimes it's only associated with women, only women dance, something people only do when they're inebriated. There's all these things that are wrapped up around dance or all these tales that people have. And I think it can feel very vulnerable to move your body. But with dance therapy, the other part of it is its movement. It's observing body movement. It's not who is the best dancer or how does this look? It's like, what does this feel like? We're taking it in from an objective thing, right? And making it your subjective experience. Like, I'm not judging your movement as good or bad. I'm looking at what it says about someone's health and how I can help their health. And that's a vastly different thing than saying we're putting you on a stage and are the lines you're making, are they pretty? We don't necessarily want that. We want to connect you to your body and have you feel embodied and live in your body in a way that feels good.
It's amazing.
Mhm.
I mean, I know that people who have limited range of motion can also benefit from dance movement therapy, but I'd love for you to just speak on that in case anyone is like putting any kind of worry about their physical abilities in when it comes to dance.
Yeah. So much of inpatients, like I actually was dealing with a lot of people with movement limitations. And I've done dance therapy also in like a psychiatric skilled nursing facility as well. And so a lot of times we would do dance therapy in chairs, and some of it's also grounding and helping people to be focused and everyone's in a circle, everyone has their chair. But one of my friends used to do dance therapy in hospice. And one of the really cool things about movement, if we talk a little bit about mirror neurons for a moment, right? So the same neurons fire if you're watching me, you know, do a movement as if you were doing the movement yourself. So even if you are not able to quote execute a movement, we're still building different neural pathways, different ways of moving just by watching someone else move. With that, you can there's no right or wrong movement in dance therapy. We of course want people to move in a safe way, like what works for their body, and so and you're not going to move in a reckless way that's going to run into someone else. But other than that, all kinds of movement are accepted. There's no right or wrong movement. And the movement limitations, where again, this is the process is encouraging people to be in their body and be respectful of their body and what they can and can't do rather than forcing something. So I think it's actually really good for people with movement limitations.
Awesome. Love that. Hope y'all heard that. Yeah. While we're on that sort of that train, is there anything you wish people knew about your modality or just in therapy in general? I feel like we're in this weird moment right now where like people want therapy, there's still stigma, there's access to it, there's a lot going on. So anything that's like kind of on your mind when it comes to what you wish consumers knew?
About dance therapy, I think we've talked a lot about the things that, well, one, I'm not going to teach you to dance. Two, I'm not going to sit and stare at you while you dance. Like I move with the other person, right? So it's not so uncomfortable that it's a conversation. We're moving together rather than it's just one person analyzing and one person moving, because that would make most of us uncomfortable, I would imagine. I think in this moment, just given the access, and also I think I don't want to go too far into the political climate, but I think there right now is a tendency to not want to feel a whole lot. And I think moving your body allows you to feel and be present. And sometimes, that might mean that we have to move through some hard emotions too. And that's okay because you end up lighter and freer in your movement and have different movement patterns towards the end. But sometimes we have to move through some of the hard things.
Mm. Ooh, yeah. We just put everybody through therapy. Yeah, I mean, that's it.
Yeah.
Because and then when you move through the things, then you're available to continue
Mhm.
being in this world that's challenging. Yeah. And, tell us a little bit about who's your ideal clients. If you have openings, like, who are you calling in to come find you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I work with people that are pretty motivated, are out there, go getters, professional, but then they hit a wall at a certain point and find that, oh my gosh, I can't sit still, or my anxiety is taking over. Or all of a sudden I'm really disconnected from my body. If somebody asks me how I feel, I don't know what's going on. And usually that comes from a place of trauma or stress. And I like to work with those people quite a bit. I also do quite a bit with dynamic attachment repatterning, which is Diane Poole Heller's work. And I'm certified in that. And it's basically, we talk about attachment, how people form their relationships, right? And sometimes we form our relationships in such a way that it's not healthy. And the work that I do is repatterning attachment styles. So, say you had like dating anxiety, that might be a great place for me to help with someone, helping them to feel more secure as they're going out into the world and dating. And then I also do dance therapy workshops, which I love working with schools and companies and bringing in, a healing modality using dance therapy techniques.
Is there, on that front, is there a particular, issue that you wanna come in to sort of provide a workshop that might speak to that issue? If a company or an organization is having trouble with something, when might they call you to come do a
Sure.
workshop?
I think a lot of it has to do, like, it's more centered around wellness than an issue. I'm always happy to work through certain topics, but like stress, helping people recognize stress in their bodies, all of these things. What does anxiety look like? How can we, connect to one another in a positive way? These are all topics that dance therapy would be wonderful at addressing.
Amazing. So it sounds like, and you work with adults and kids in that capacity?
I do less with children, maybe like 14 and up. So yeah, most of my career has been with adults, but there are definitely dance therapists out there that do wonderful work with children as well.
Amazing. Yeah, what people don't know is that when you work with kids, you also have to work with parents.
I mean, so then you're also working with adults, but
Yeah.
it's still
No, I just mean, like, sometimes you don't want the headache of also working with I love kids.
there's definitely more just more people to consider. And then it's also in a system, right? So you send the child home to the parents that haven't changed their behavior, and it's still going to be challenging for that child. And also it can be frustrating for you because you're trying to help that child as best you can. But
Yeah.
in my internship that I did in grad school, that worked a lot with children, they respond so well to movement. And you can do so much like metaphor and play. And I'm sure it's much the same with drama therapy, is just kids just eat that up. And sometimes they don't have words for things, right? So movement is such a powerful way to get on their level and to see what's happening with
Yeah, I mean, it's all that you just said, and then also that they haven't, formed the judgment that they're not allowed to play or they're not allowed to express themselves creatively. Like, I don't know at what point we started like, "No, we can't play. We have to show up as, like, serious and adult and all of that stuff." But, yeah,
them.
amazing.
Yeah, what's fascinating is sometimes I get adults that I have to like, all right, you were never allowed to play and move and be free in your body, and we have to like try it out. And it might be someone that's 50 years old that's never had that experience. And that's kind of fascinating too, right? To
Mhm.
be like, okay, for whatever reason, you weren't allowed to be a kid. Let's see if we can find what play and joy feels like in your body.
Absolutely. I often use play and playfulness as a diagnostic tool, and I get a lot of information just making little offers and see what happens.
The
Um,
word joy can be like such an interesting diagnostic tool as well. Just being like, when was the last time you found joy? Have you experienced joy in your body? Or like, what are little things that light you up? I think somebody talked about glimmers, which are kind of the opposite of triggers. Have you
mhm.
heard the term glimmer?
Yeah, not yeah, but go ahead, yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of these like little things that light you up a little bit. And I love that idea. I love that you can like grasp onto things that give us a spark of joy.
100%. I'm trying to live fully in that because I know that when I'm doing that, then I'm a better therapist, right? Like, and I'm
Absolutely.
role modeling joy and play and glimmer and all of that stuff, and sort of inviting everyone else to come join me.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It's easier to do that when you're in that space. It's easier to be like, well, you know what? One of the interesting thing is that when I have people scan their bodies, right? We just start with a body scan before you even get moving, right? As a way to connect. Immediately, people go to pain. You know,
Mhm.
immediately it's like, what's hurting? What's not working like it used to? Um, And then it's just like, no wonder people get shut down if they immediately scan. And it's smart, right? On an evolutionary basis, it's smart. You should pay attention to your broken wrist. or something that's aching, right? But it does not do the same thing as it's almost like a way to get back to a baseline, but it doesn't foster joy. So one of the challenges I like to do for people is like, can you find a part of your body that feels good? If you can't do good, what's neutral? What's something that you haven't thought about? And if because you haven't thought about it, it's probably okay, you know. But that's something that I found that's really interesting.
That's so fun. I'm gonna take that with me. Like, I love that. That's great. Yeah, and it's almost like, sometimes my therapist will ask me that, and I'll just be like, I don't. Am I allowed to talk about what's what feels good right now? Like,
Right,
I'm in
right. I
therapy.
mean, isn't that the idea with positive psychology, right? You can get to a point where we fix the thing that's ailing you, but how do you like level up to actually feeling good, right? And that's I think that's part of our job as a therapist is not just okay, we got rid of the thing that was weighing you down, but also what can we do to have you live your most embodied, joyful life?
Oh, yes, I love that. I wish that for all of us. Can we all get there
Me
immediately?
too. I think so.
Amazing. Well, we have a couple minutes left. I'd love to just have you tell people how they can find you, how they can work with you, all of that good stuff.
Sure. So my website is lisamanca.com. And, if you have any questions about, anything we've talked about today, whether it's dating anxiety, dance therapy workshops, I'm open. And also if you just need resources, if you're like, actually, I'm in Utah, but I want to find a dance therapist or I want to hear more about it, please contact me. I'm super open to helping people find and connect with what they need.
Amazing. I love that. Yeah, we're both in California. So if you want to work with either of us and you live in California,
Yeah.
but then it gets tricky if you're somewhere else. But we all, there's not that many drama therapists. If you're looking for a drama therapist, I can help you. So I'm sure it's the same.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for being here. Is there any last things you want to leave with? You want the people to know?
No, I think maybe just the idea of like, um, how we move influences how we feel,
Mm.
and how we feel kind of influences how we move. So it's goes both ways. And if we change our movement, we change how we feel, which kind of changes our lives. So I think movement is really powerful.
Oh, I love that. That's so beautiful. As I've been like sitting like in back-to-back meetings all day, I'm like, I need to get up and move my body.
Exactly. Yeah,
Thanks for reminding me.
absolutely.
Awesome.
Definitely. Yes, go out and move around
I
for
am.
me
That's
and
true.
Megan.
Now it's like it's time to move the body. Amazing. Well, thank you so much. I hope you all have loved this. I'm gonna put in the follow-up your website so people can find you and yeah, thanks. Thank you so much for being here. I'm gonna end the stream. Oh, by the way, I'm Megan and I specialize in people who've had a rough time at work, and I am also open for business. So I'm gonna end this stream.